Columbus Blue Jackets are locked into 4th overall at the draft. Who should they take? We're going to talk about that. Plus, the World Championships get underway this weekend, and there's a couple of Blue Jackets there. So we're going to talk about all of that on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I also have to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more, because right now new customers are going to get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. So there was lots of hubbub and drama before the draft lottery. Everyone got really excited when John Bucci-Gross posted that quote-unquote spoiler/leak /rehearsal that had Sharks winning the lottery and then Utah moving up to 2nd overall. Everyone got real mad about it. Turns out, actually, the draft lottery was really boring. No one moved anywhere. The Sharks won. The Blackhawks have 2nd, the Ducks have 3rd, the Blue Jackets are locked into 4th overall. And we talked a little bit about what kind of that would mean for the Blue Jackets in the last episode, in yesterday's episode, the day before's episode. And I just wanted to kind of re-go over that, look at some players that could be available, who I personally would take. The fun thing about 4th overall is that after Celebrini goes first, I've looked at a bunch of different mock drafts, and every single one of them has like a completely different order after first. Like, most of them have Demidov going 2nd. Ivan Demidov, the Russian winger, but like I've seen Salayev 2nd, I've seen Levshinov 2nd, I've seen someone talking about Cole Eiserman going 2nd, which they must be kind of out of the loop. But so it really is difficult to kind of predict who's even going to be there at 4th overall. And again, like I've seen so many different mock drafts and so many different options for the Blue Jackets. So I thought let's just kind of go through them. Not in any kind of real order, just because I don't really have my rankings in any kind of order yet. My personal rankings, I know just enough about the draft to make me dangerous, but I do try and put together some kind of mini Locked On Blue Jackets rankings. And I'm still kind of pulling together my scouting profiles and whatnot. Hopefully we're going to have a few more of those coming up either next week or the week after, because I know there's a couple of guys that we haven't even talked about yet that could be in contention for the Blue Jackets. So the most common couple that I've seen is the two defensemen. So that's Anton Salayev and Artem Levshinov. Belarusian defenseman, excuse me. And one of them played in Russia this season, Salayev. Everyone got really excited about him. He's 6'7" and ginormous. He had 11 points in 63 KHL games this season. Levshinov had 35 points in 38 games with Michigan State University this season. So very different players. Levshinov, 6'2" to Salayev, 6'7". These are the two ones that I'm kind of mainly seeing. And I don't know that the Blue Jackets want defensemen in this draft. I know everyone is, well, I say everyone, and I'm going to pull up the Locked On Blue Jackets Twitter that I did about this, where I said, who do you want to see the Blue Jackets take at 4th overall? And again, I got a bunch of different options. I saw someone say, let's see, Lindstrom or Dickinson, Levshinov, TJ Ginler or Berkeley Catton, Anton Salayev, Lindstrom again, just a lot of different options, but the most that I've seen have been Salayev or Levshinov. A lot of people have Demidov, like I said, a lot of people have Demidov going 2nd overall. I want to talk about him a little bit in a bit, because I do think he could be available at 4th overall. But I don't know that the Blue Jackets need more defense in their prospect pool. Like, if you look at who they have at the minute, I think if they do draft a defenseman, I think it's them saying that they don't have faith in the defensive pool that they have created thus far, which I think would be a foolish thing to do and or say. The Blue Jackets currently, in terms of their defensive prospect pool, they've got David Jiricek, they've got Denton Matejchuk, they've got Corson Kuhlman, they've got Stanislav Svozil, they've got Samuel Konecko. Jake Christensen, I guess, is still technically in that prospect pool, although I don't know that I would consider him a prospect anymore. And that's adding onto the fact that, like, they've got Zach Werenski for the next 4 seasons. They've got David Severson for the next 7 seasons, I believe. Erica Branson is locked in for another 2 seasons. Like, do they extend Jake Bean? Do they keep Adam Boquist around? Do they keep Ivan Provorov around? Like, there's just drafting another defenseman, I don't think makes sense. And I don't think any of the defensemen available are good enough that you should forego a player like an impact forward. If it was a case of there was, like, this is the next Cale Makar, or this is the next best defenseman in the world, if there was the next Quinn Hughes available, or the next Nicholas Lidstrom, I don't know, I'm pulling random defensemen out my butt here, then yeah, I could see them, like, foregoing a forward to draft that best defenseman in the world type player, but I don't think any of the defensemen available. There's a lot of very solid defensemen available. We haven't even looked at, Zeev Buem, Zane Perek, Sam Dickinson is another guy that is being thrown around as potentially being available for the Blue Jackets in that kind of group. If you go to the Tankathon, their top 10, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 defensemen in that top 10. All of whom could potentially be, an option for the Blue Jackets. But I don't see any of those guys being enticing enough to miss out on a guy like, for example, if Demidov is available, I think potentially he goes. I think if Lindstrom is available, I think he goes. It's will those 2 players be available? It could conceivably be that Celebrini goes first, Demidov goes second, Lindstrom goes third, and then the Blue Jackets have, okay, who do they take then? Do they go Levchinov? Do they go Silayev? Do they go Iginla, Yzerman? Like, there's so many different options that it's so tough to predict, because Chicago is like, right, okay, do they want another defenseman to add to their pool? I don't know that they have. Like, Kevin Korchinski had a really great rookie season. They have some defensive pieces. They have some forward pieces. Do they want to add another forward? I know that they already have. Bedard is on the smaller side. Oliver Moore is on the smaller side. Frank Nazar is on the smaller side. Like, do they want to add another small forward like Ivan Demidov, who, he's probably going to end up being 6 foot, so not necessarily small. Or do they want to kind of add their next number 1 defenseman, their Seth Jones replacement, so to speak? Same with the Ducks. They just traded Jamie Drysdale away to pick up Cutter Gauthier. Do they pick up another, like, are they planning to move Trevor Zegras? Do they need another forward? Do they want a defenseman to replace Jamie Drysdale? It's really a 50-50, I think, on those 2 teams, whether they even pick forwards or defensemen. So it's impossible to know. Like I said, like I keep saying, it's impossible to know who's going to be available at 4th overall. But unless both Demidov and Lindstrom are gone when you get to 4th overall, I don't see them taking a defenseman. I really don't. We'll take a quick break, and then we're going to look at some of those forwards that could be available. And again, who I would like the Blue Jackets to draft, who I think they will draft, and just some more talk about the draft, because it's draft season, baby. So we'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I need to tell you about Indeed, because there's no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build your team. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. It's the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills. Indeed's powerful hiring platform can help you do it all. They streamline hiring with powerful tools to help you find perfectly matched candidates, and with Indeed Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed's US data. Candidates you invite to apply are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search, according to that data, and Indeed is going to get you one step closer to that hire by immediately matching you with those quality candidates. Even better, Indeed is the only job site where you pay for applications, or you only pay for applications that meet your must-have requirements. So join more than 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/locked-on. Offer is only good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/locked-on. Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We're talking all about the NHL draft, who the Blue Jackets are going to take, who's going to be available. And so far, we have kind of decided that we have no idea who's going to be available. But this show, or me specifically, leaning against drafting yet another defenseman. They have so many in the pool already. So let's take a look at some of the forwards that could be available. And again, some of these are guys that I talked about on the last episode. Ivan Demidov, Caden Lindstrom, Berkeley Catton, who I think is probably not going to be drafted that high, but I would love if he was drafted that high. I think he would be a great Blue Jackets pick. He's currently sitting at 10th overall in the Tankathon mock draft. The best one to look at is Bob McKenzie's rankings, because his are not necessarily who the best players are in order. It's who he thinks is going to go where in the draft. So like his are really good to look at, because he has the most accurate rankings in terms of who's going to go where, not who's going to be the best, but who's going to go where. So in terms of Bob McKenzie's rankings, again, Berkeley Catton is listed at 10th overall on his list. He currently has Cole Eiserman at 4th overall, Caden Lindstrom at 5th, Ivan Demidov at 6th. So he has Salayev and Levshinov going 2 and 3 overall. These are the mid-season rankings. So these are probably a little bit out of date, the mid-season rankings on TSN. Probably these will adjust a little bit, but this does have Lindstrom and Demidov both available for the Blue Jackets at 4th. I would be thrilled with either one of these picks, quite frankly. Lindstrom, I think, is listed as listed that he plays center, but he could potentially be a winger. And again, I think you have him as your second line center. You push Cole Sillinger down to that third line center. Have Dmitry Voronkov as your fourth line center, maybe. Like that to me feels like extremely good depth at the center position. Or you play him on the wing. You keep Cole Sillinger at that 2C position and you shuffle things around like that. Put Lindstrom with Fantilli and Brindley and just watch them torch the league. Similar thing, Demidov. You have to probably wait a little bit longer with Demidov, but frankly, I don't think the Blue Jackets are drafting anyone in this draft. So his contract runs through to the end of next season, through the end of the 24-25 season. So, like, he's not going to be available before the 25-26 season anyway. But I think anyone the Blue Jackets draft here at this position is going to be at least a year away anyway. So I don't see Lindstrom jumping straight into the NHL this season. I see him going back to Medicine Hat. And Demidov obviously will stay in Russia until the end of his contract. Will he extend? I don't know. I would imagine no, just based on a handful of like socio-political factors. They buried him in the MHL this season, where he was excellent. He had 23 goals, 37 assists in 30 games, had 28 points in 17 playoff games for SKA St. Petersburg in the MHL. I don't see him kind of sticking around in Russia. I know everyone's always terrified that Russian players might just stay there forever and it'll be a waste of a draft pick, but either one of these players is going to be a huge addition to any team. And frankly, I think the Blue Jackets are at a point where they can afford to be a little bit more patient. We've seen what happens when they try to rush things, when they, the signing of Johnny Gaudreau, the signing of Damon Severson, the trading for Ivan Provorov, the bringing Adam Fantilli into the NHL instead of sending him back to college for another year. Like I was happy with that decision, but I could have seen a world where he went back and did his sophomore season with Michigan, and I think the Blue Jackets can afford to be a little bit more patient, not like massively patient, because they have to start taking steps forward. But I don't think that they need to focus with this 4th overall pick on bringing someone in that can help the team immediately next season. And so I think they can, like I said, they can afford to be a little bit patient. In terms of other options, like those are my top 2 guys in terms of forwards, and also just in terms of like in general. A couple of other options, like we talked about Burkett and T.J. Ginla is an option. I don't think he goes as high as 4th overall. Cole Eiserman is the only other name that I think could potentially be in the mix. I wouldn't love this pick. I has a lot of red flags to his game. He is a phenomenally talented goal scorer, but he doesn't seem to have much else in his toolkit, and that worries me. If I'm being quite honest, he had 58 goals in 57 games for the NTDP this season. 25 goals in 24 games for the US NTP Juniors, which is the team that plays in the USHL during the regular season. He's going to be going to Boston University next season. Maybe he rounds out his game. He's still, he's not 18 yet. He doesn't turn 18 until August 29th. So he's on the younger side of things, which is always, promising for players. But a lot of just so many of the prospect guys that I've spoken to and the public scouts that I've spoken to, they are worried about Eiserman's game. And I don't know that the Blue Jackets need another kind of unidimensional player. You can't deny that the goal scoring is there. And again, maybe they take him and they figure everything else out. Like that's what they've done with players in the past. But I don't know. There's just this, to me anyway, there's too many red flags with Eiserman's game that makes me think he probably won't translate to the NHL level as well as people think that he might. So that's kind of all I've got about the draft. Obviously, bummed that the Blue Jackets didn't move up. That would have made this a lot easier. But the Blue Jackets are going to get a really, really good player at 4th overall, and I think that should be exciting. Well, like I said, we're going to continue on with our prospect coverage and our draft coverage, kind of as the off season rolls on. We've still got 6 weeks until the draft. If I can read a calendar properly. So we've got a ton more prospect profiles coming at you. We're doing a locked on mock draft, which should be fun and exciting. There's a lot of draft coverage coming. So stick around for that if that's what you're interested in. We're going to take another quick break, and then when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about the World Championships, because we haven't talked about them a ton, and there has been some additions and some subtractions of Blue Jackets players. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked on Blue Jackets. First, I'm going to tell you about FanDuel, because it's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a win of your own. Right now, new customers are going to get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on today to get started and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook and also an official sponsor of us, the Locked On Podcast Network. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. Like I said, we're talking all about we were talking about the draft. Now we're talking about the World Championships. Adam Fantilli was named to the Canadian squad, and then they sent him home, apparently. Both him and Macklin Celebrini were not necessarily cut from the team, but apparently they accepted the invitation with the understanding that if more veteran players were made available, then they might not get a roster spot. And then the Team Canada decided to bring in Pierre-Luc Dubois, Nick Paul, and Brandon Hagel. And so they were like, listen, you can stay and train with Team Canada, or you can do that at home. And they were like, well, we're going to go home, because if we're not going to play, then what's the point of being here? Which I completely understand. So no Adam Fantilli at the World Championships, which is kind of a bummer, because in a conversation with those 4 players, being Fantilli, Dubois, Nick Paul, and Brandon Hagel, I know which one I would want on my team, but it was not to be. Luckily, there's plenty of Blue Jackets representation happening in on other teams. So Team USA has the most Blue Jackets. They've got Johnny Gaudreau, Zach Werenski, and as of yesterday, they announced that Gavin Brindley is going to be on the squad as well, which is very exciting. Very excited to see what he does with his graduation to the men's squad, and like just as an example of like how like not meteoric his rise has been, but he was a guy that like maybe wasn't going to make the World Juniors roster last year, and then did that and was great. Really, really flourished. Had 4 points in 7 games for the World Juniors last season, and had 10 points in 7 games this season, wore an A, and now he's getting named to the men's squad. So that's really exciting. Excited to see who they play him with. Going to be looking forward to seeing Johnny Gaudreau play there as well. Zach Werenski is clearly enjoying being healthy for the first time for the first time in a long time over the summer, I feel like. And then in terms of other players, Elvis Muslikins is going to be there playing for Latvia. He is, I believe, the only NHL player on the Latvian roster. So that's going to be interesting for him. I feel a little bit bad for him that that Latvia is going to be, like I said, it's just him in terms of who is going to be playing. So I'm not super seeing anything coming from Latvia specifically. I forgot that Damon Severson was playing for Team Canada as well. I'm just scrolling through the rosters now. So Damon Severson going to be playing for Canada, so they will have someone playing for them in Canada. It just won't be Adam Fantilli, which is kind of a bummer, especially since Connor Bedard got to stay, but Adam Fantilli had to go home. So like that kind of sucks. No one on Sweden, no one on Finland, I believe. So it might be just. Or excuse me, that was Denmark I was looking at. In terms of Sweden, no one from the Blue Jackets, but they are well represented for Team USA, which is always exciting in my book. Who knows? It's always tough. World Championships is always a lot of fun, but it's always kind of tough to predict like what's going to happen. I assume that Canada wins it all because Canada usually does the thing. But the Team GB is going to be back in the top flight this year. So I am like, well, normally I just kind of root for chaos, but now I guess I have to root for both chaos and my guys. But rooting for the Blue Jackets, we'll keep you updated on what's going on there. In terms of the just to finish off the WHL. And the OHL championships are set. It will be Max McHugh and the London Knights in the OHL facing off against the Oshawa Generals. Saginaw Spirit lost the championship, but will be going to the Memorial Cup anyway because it's in Saginaw, so we'll get to see Nolan Lalonde there. And then Denton Mateychuk and the Moose Jaw Warriors won in Game 7 against the Saskatoon Blades, so they will be playing for the WHL championship against the Portland Winterhawks. Denton Mateychuk also given the award for Defenseman of the Year in the WHL. Just everything about Denton Mateychuk makes me excited. I can't wait to. I need the Monsters to continue their playoff run, so I can maybe see Denton Mateychuk into the mix there when his season with juniors is over. That's kind of all I've got for today, though. Shout out to the Monsters who won in double overtime last night. Owen Sillinger, who I called the Monsters Boone Jenner, and I stand by that, scored a big goal to win that double overtime game against the Belleville Senators. The Monsters are up 2-1 on the series. They have Game 4 of the best of 5 series on Friday, and then potentially a Game 5 if needed on Sunday. So Monday we'll have Dina Weinheimer back to run through the Cleveland Monsters season against Belleville. Hopefully, we're crossing all of our fingers that we get to talk about a series win. But either way, we'll have Dina here to talk about that. So everything's looking promising in Blue Jackets land. I am quietly optimistic about everything that's happening right now. That's kind of what I've got for today. Tomorrow we will do another player review profile. Probably, I think Dmitry Voronkov is next on the list. Potentially Boone. It's either Voronkov or Jenna. I haven't looked at my list, so we'll talk about one of those guys tomorrow. Thank you for listening to this episode, for making us your first listen of the day every single day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms, on YouTube and on SiriusXM. And you can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.